Welcome to Stop the Fight. And today, we're recapping this weekend's action. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, though!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong man, good boy, you know, just.
Let's just get right to it. Paul-Askren got knocked out in the first round. Completely. It wasn't an early stoppage. Anyone who's saying it's an early stoppage is insane. That guy looked like he'd never seen a pair of hands. I couldn't believe that a world-level MMA fighter can have such poor striking. I mean, I'm wrong here, guys. I definitely lost a little bit of money on this fight. This was not what I was expecting from Paul-Askren. He really sullied his name, and unfortunately, he sullied the name of MMA fighters. Now everyone, I mean, you fought a YouTuber and you got knocked out in the first round. Yeah, you barely made it at the 9 count. But I've had every reason to stop the fight. You let a bomb through that early. That was maybe his second right hand that Jake Paul threw. And it landed completely clean. Your face hit the canvas in the replays. You would have gotten knocked out. It would have been an even bigger knockout had the ref let you continue. So to anyone out here who's saying that the fight could have continued, you guys just want to see Paul-Askren get more hurt than he already was. The man made some money. He came in fat. He came in like he didn't even train. I mean, maybe he took us all for a little ride here. But $1 million, I don't know. You are going down as one of the worst combat sport fighters to ever grace both the ring and the octagon. Unbelievable lack of preparation and discipline from you, Ben. That was insane. I should have waited until the weigh-in to place the bet. Otherwise, I would have never put the bet on. I just wouldn't have bet. But again, you want to give props to Jake Paul, really now? You really do. It's all fun and games, but the guy's clearly taking the sport seriously, or at least seriously enough to beat an MMA fighter, an MMA champion, a UFC caliber fighter. You know, he beat him. There's not much to say. Now, this wasn't a boxer, but nonetheless, clearly Jake Paul is to be taken seriously, and he cannot have any. There should be no fights that are commissioned against non-fighters. This is clear. They're going to get hurt. Jake Paul is clearly taking the sport seriously enough, and he's a gifted enough athlete where he's able to put some power on his punches. Though that right hand, he was able to turn it over properly. This is not a guy who comes in the ring, who comes into training 2 times a week to do some cardio boxing. This guy's is clearly a fighter who is in the ring and at the gym training maybe upwards 5 times a week. It looks like it. He's clearly a gifted enough athlete to be able to pick up the sport even at such an advanced stage. So the commission cannot allow another non-fighter to fight him. He's clearly beyond the point of just hee-hee-ha-ha, this is a YouTuber. This is a YouTuber who can throw some hands, and if he's going to fight anybody, it has to be former fighters going forward, and we all have to be sober in our analysis going forward with Jake Paul. Now, his brother, I don't know. He didn't look particularly great. Obviously, he's a talented kid in his previous fights, but Jake is a legit fighter. Now, I don't know who he would fight. I think it's too early to throw him in against any real pro boxing, I mean. Maybe some 3-3 kind of guy, maybe a 5-5 kind of guy, maybe a 10-6 kind of guy. You know, you put him up against, but the problem is Jake Paul's making so much money, they're going to bring in somebody who they can really capitalize on. You know, I think Jake Paul has kind of put himself in an interesting position where he's already making a lot of money, but his next fight is going to make a lot more. And this is the thing about fight sports. You come out, you knock your opponents out the way that he's done. You know, first it was a YouTuber, then it was a basketball player. Now it's a retired MMA fighter. Who's next? They're saying Conor McGregor. Can he beat Conor in a boxing match? You know, he's going to be a lot bigger than Conor. Conor fights in 150, at 170, or whatever the weights are in UFC. I don't know. But he certainly is not a 190 pound kind of guy. And Jake Paul is. You know, he's not a small man. He's 6'1", 190. That's a big guy. Trust me. That's a big guy. So with Conor, I don't know. If he, Conor McGregor is susceptible to getting hurt. We've now seen him stopped in we've seen him stopped in both sports. He is susceptible to getting hurt. He's got a questionable chin. Now, in MMA, it's a little bit different than in boxing. Those 4-ounce gloves, a little child can stop you if your hand's clean enough. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. Those, glove sizes, they matter a lot. And if you get clipped with 4-ounce gloves, anyone can get stopped with those things. Now, can he beat Conor McGregor? I think that's what we're all thinking here. I don't know, but he's now proven himself to be dedicated enough, to be a serious enough practitioner of the sport to warrant a legitimate consideration were he to fight Conor McGregor, if that's who it is. I think if he fights one of these retired Tito Ortiz or whoever else they bring out from the MMA world, I think he'll beat them. There's no question about it. These guys have been out of the game for a long time. They don't have much of a chin anymore. And, and I don't think they're going to put him in against a no-name boxer or a no-name fighter simply because there's just not enough money for that. If you're Jake Paul, you're looking for those big dollars, those really big dollars. And I think Conor McGregor is going to be maybe interested, because if Conor McGregor loses his next fight, I think it's in June, which is the trilogy against, what's his name, Poirier or whatever his name is, he's kind of done at the MMA level. I think he's done, and it's freak show fights from here on out for Conor. Or I just can't imagine him going back in there after getting beat numerous times. You don't want to be one of these fighters, with Roy Jones just continuously coming in there and somebody knocking him out. Someone who shouldn't even be able to sniff his boxing gloves. He's knocking out the legendary Jones. Guys, don't do that to your careers. Don't become that person. Now, of course, Roy's legacy isn't really hampered by getting knocked out at age 44 against literally who. But it's just, you just don't want to see that happen to a fighter who at one point was the pinnacle of his sport. And Conor McGregor at one point was the pinnacle of at least his division, a 2-time champion in the UFC. So if he loses to Poirier, I can definitely imagine the Jake Paul fight. But, MMA's taking a lot of L's with this. Although, we'll talk about Frank Mir in a bit. But MMA is, you kind of don't look good when you send in a former champion to get knocked out by a YouTuber. You just don't look good. It's inexcusable for an MMA champion to have such poor striking. It really is. So again, this is more of just the complete ridiculousness and the inability of Ben Askren to look like he even trained. Now, I will say this: he did land an overhand right over Jake Paul's jab in the very opening sequence of the fight, which kind of had me a little bit excited. Ben Askren had a little bit of speed, but he kept his hands in this weird, almost 1940s position the entire time. He was very stiff on his feet. He looked very unathletic, and I know he's a champion wrestler, and these guys are athletic people. It looks like he just couldn't transition to boxing. I don't think he trained really. That footwork looked so terrible. He couldn't step to the side whatsoever. His left hand was down, and that he was susceptible to that right hand right away. Right before he even got knocked out by that punch, I think he either took a right hand or the right hand just missed seconds before. So I knew right away that this was going to be a wrap. Jake Paul was able to throw it fast, accurately, and relatively straight, his right hand was. So, again, props to Jake Paul. Congratulations, you've proven you are legitimately a fighter. We don't know where, what level you're at, but you are legitimately a fighter. You've taken boxing seriously, and congratulations, Jake. Congratulations. Ben, congratulations on the money. Enjoy your retirement. Please don't fight again in any sport. Please do us all a favor. Thank you. Now, Frank Mir, Steve Cunningham. Frank Mir did a great job. And Oscar De La Hoya being drunk the entire time, talking nonsense, was what took away from the fact that Frank Mir fought. He went the distance. By the way, if you guys bet on that, that was one of the fights we made a little bit of money on, taking the over 3.5. Frank Mir was not only able to make the distance, but he looked okay in there. Sure, he didn't look like a boxing champion, but he actually looked pretty good for a guy who hadn't fought in a little bit, who was heavy. You know, Steve Cunningham looked like Adonis in there, and he won the fight, of course. But Frank Mir, he fought well. He did MMA proud. He showed that he can take a boxing champion's punches. He stood in there. I think he was buzzed a couple of times, but he did really well. You know, props to Frank Mir. You know, you can tell that unlike Ben, he trained. Frank Mir trained, and he took shots from a big guy as well. Someone who actually knocked Tyson Fury down was not able to knock out nor knock down Frank Mir. So congratulations, Frank. Great job. And then Steve Cunningham, you did, congrats for coming in. You look like you're in shape. You know, again, a former U.S. Navy sailor? Yes, sailor. Seaman. So congratulations again to both those guys. I liked it. What else do we have on the undercard over there? Ah, yes. Of course. This fight. Prograis versus Redkach. Wow. What a dive. Unbelievable. That was ridiculous, guys. And the fight wound up ending in under 5.5. So, like, if you had any, I was telling you guys, so I want to stay away from that fight because I just didn't like anything about it. Now, Ivan looked horrible. He was getting hit by Prograis the entire time. I was telling my friend that even prior to, I think, the fifth round, I'm like, there's no way Ivan might not even make it to the over. And then he just looked poor. And Prograis obviously is really good. He's a really good fighter, but Ivan looked terrible. He's looked terrible his last few fights. He looked not so much terrible. He's not looked good at all. And he beat Devon Alexander. That was his last win 2 years ago. But Devon Alexander has been done for years. He's looked poor for years. So now, he was just susceptible to Prograis' power shots the entire time. He looked like there was a different league, and I don't know if it's Prograis being so good or a Redkach being so bad. It would seem like to be a mixture of both, but I don't enjoy that fight whatsoever. The stupid blue hair on him. Ugh. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the actual event. Now, a lot of people, obviously Oscar De La Hoya during the Steve Cunningham fight was completely drunk. You had Al Bernstein being in there. It sounded like he was uncomfortable with everyone talking, telling him, like, you should smoke some weed, you should get lit. And it's just like, geez, guys, it's like you bring the one, and Mario Lopez, to his credit, also tried to announce the fight. Now, I guess it was Frank Mir and Steve Cunningham. It wasn't really in question as to what was going to happen in that fight. But nonetheless, it seemed both comical but a little bit sad. Thankfully, Oscar was taken off the air before the Prograis fight, which was a real fight and required real analysis. But, the actual event, it seemed like we were like, it seemed a little bit ridiculous. I'm a little torn as to what I think about it. On the one hand, it was entertaining, really entertaining at points. And that's what you want from an event. Especially, Trillers it's not trying to be the WBC or Showtime Boxing or HBO Boxing. It's trying to put on fun events. You're watching a show. Bieber's performance was decent. Doja Cat was pretty damn good. And you have all these musicians in there. You have the slap boxing stuff with Ric Flair. That was hilarious. But at points, as a little bit of a boxing purist, you're like, what is this? What am I watching? I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, at points, I seem to like it. I know my non-boxing friends really enjoyed it. They loved the little spectacles. They liked it more than the actual boxing in some of the ways. Well, that's because you have to love the characters. Once you're into the characters, once you know who they are, you know their story, you're that much more invested. And that's the great part about these individual sports like boxing or MMA or tennis. You really root for the individual. You become on his side, or their side, or her side. Now, like one of my friend's girlfriends liked Jake Paul and was interested, and she knew the story. So when the fight came up, she was really invested in the fight. As a matter of fact, when she watched Deontay Wilder fight against King Kong, Ortiz, when she watched the pre-fight build up a little bit, she was really nervous and really upset when Ortiz was knocked out because she was that invested in the character. And that's why we love this sport so much. That's why we love these individual sports, these trials and tribulations that the fighters or these individuals go through. You can put yourself in those shoes. It's hard for you to imagine putting yourself in the shoes of a team because that's 20 people or however many, depending on the sport you're watching. But in a fight, you can imagine what the individual goes through because we all go through these hardships. We all go through tough times, and that's why you get so into it. That's why you feel like this is, you can relate. So, like I said, I'm a little bit torn on the card, but I'm happy that my non-boxing fans enjoyed it. Again, anything that brings more eyes to boxing is good. It really is. And like I said, anyone who's saying that the fight was it was a throw, I don't think so. I could imagine the Redkach fight being a throw, but not the Ben Askren fight. Like his face hit the canvas. Straight on. He took a very clean right hand. His face hit the canvas. He barely made it up in time. The ref did the right thing. You're not a boxer in there. If you're looking daisy-eyed and you're allowing shots to go through that early, those big, and these are wind-up shots, you're going to get knocked out, son. You're going to take a nap, and your family's out here. You don't need that. You need your health, okay? So that's that. Now, on the other card that we had, we actually saw young Vito lose against Martin. That was, when one judge that had it a draw, what were you watching? God forbid Martin lost that last round. That was almost a clean sweep for Martin. And Vito is clearly not at that level. He has a lot of work to do. Getting rid of Joe Goosen because he tried to train you long and you want to stay by your family. Kid, you're 18 years old. This is a life lesson. First of all, you keep your chin up too high when you throw punches. Number two, when you get a real trainer like Goosen in there telling you need to train more, and boxing involves being away from your family. Hello, that's like the trope. Everyone says it. What's one of the things they hate about boxing? What's one of the things they're always happy when they retire? I don't have to spend all this time away from my family anymore. And, Vito over here, he has to understand that if he wants to take this sport seriously, first of all, he needs to go back to Goosen probably. And second of all, he needs to understand that you're going to be away from your family. These are the sacrifices that all athletes or rock stars or anyone who gets to the world-class level in any arena goes through. You will be away from your family. The people who get to the world championship level, whether it be in business, in boxing, in music, you're going to spend a lot of time away from your family. You think the rock star who's on tour for 6-7 months of the year is seeing a lot of family? Absolutely not. But that's what he's expected or she's expected to do to stay at that level. How much family time do you think someone like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos has? Very little. They're running multi-billion-dollar, maybe even trillion-dollar enterprises in the case of Amazon. They need to invest more time in that. They're building historical legacy. If you want to invest more time with your family, which is commendable, then you cannot make it at the world-class level. You will never make it there. You'll just keep getting knocked out. Vito, this time you fought a guy with not too much power, and he bloodied your face up. The next guy with some power will put you to sleep. Either you have the dedication of the sport, or you will become a journeyman. Tale is old as time. Doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you cannot work hard enough, you will be outworked by other guys who are equally as talented. I don't like that. I don't like the saying, talent that doesn't work, it gets outworked by non-talent that works or whatever, goes something like that. That's rarely ever the case. Usually when you have talent, you'll always beat the guys who don't have talent, no matter how hard they work. That's the way genetics work. But there are, at the world-class level, everyone's talented. And everyone's working nonstop. So if you can't work at that level, if you can't take time away from your family, then you will never make it to the world championship level. And like I said, that one judge that had it a draw, I kind of expected it. I was telling the people who were watching the fight with me, who, by the way, we put some beer money on Martin, so that was actually a pretty sizable payout. I think it was plus 1,200 or something like that. But it was pretty good, 12 times your money. But anyway, let me continue saying, that one judge, you always expected. This is an up-and-coming prospect. The judges, they don't want to. The network doesn't want to see the guy they're investing money in lose. There's always a little bit of weird stuff in that going on, where it's difficult to win a decision against a hot up and coming prospect. But this fight was not close at all. I think Vito won like 2 rounds in this fight. The judges had it 4 pieces out of goddamn mind. Vito was saying, with what? He was bleeding the entire time. You saw he was outlanded at nearly 2-1. That one judge who had her a draw, please show me. It actually, the other time I felt salty about a score was obviously the Canelo-Floyd Mayweather fight, where you had Adelaide Bird have it at 114. Like, how? Like, what in the hell what fight are you watching? Also felt that salty about Kovalev Ward 1. I've rewatched that fight like 2 or 3 times, and I've never once been able to score it for Ward. But the judges somehow did. Whatever, that's neither here nor there. But, in this case, I kind of expected it. But Vito, he's still a good prospect. The kid's 18. He's 18. He's a young man. He looked good, but it seemed like he was lacking a little bit of pop, to tell you the truth. It seemed like he couldn't turn over those punches, like the snap wasn't there. It could be the fact that Vito's still a little bit young. You don't get to that. You're still growing a lot as a boy at 18. You're still a boy. Very few guys are men at 18. Very, very few. Most human males don't really hit that physical stride until 21, 22, and sometimes a little bit later than that, which is why, you consider for most fighters your prime to be between ages 27 and 32, where you're mentally fully developed and physically, and you have some experience. Which is why, like a 30-year-old Mayweather, 29-year-old Mayweather is probably unbeatable, right, around his weight classes. He's just too experienced, too quick, too strong still at that age. And this is why, Roy Jones, I feel, at his prime years, why he was so untouchable. But with Vito at 18, if this was a 22, 23-year-old Vito getting beat the way he did, I would say that, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of just don't have a world-class fighter on our hands. But at 18, he's young. He'll still learn a lot more. We'll see him again, I'm sure. He just got to change his trainer, or at least take the training more seriously. Now, unfortunately for Tony Harrison, he didn't look too good against Harrison-Perrella. And again, I didn't bet on this fight, but he didn't look too hot. And I think that Charlo KO probably did a little bit more damage than we think. He just didn't look fast. He didn't look like he had any snap. He looked dry. I wasn't too impressed at all. I want to say congratulations to Harrison-Perrella, who came in and did the best that he could, put himself in the best position to win. I wasn't actively scoring, but a draw seems about right. This was his break, and now now he's going to get paid. So, Brian, congratulations, and you're absolutely going to get paid now. To take Tony Harrison to a draw like this, your next fight is going to get paid because you were brought in to lose. You were brought in to make Tony Harrison look good, and you flipped the script on them. To use overuse saying, you flipped the script on them. You boxed well. You fought when you had to. You made Tony uncomfortable, and you went home with a draw. I think you could have won it. Again, I wasn't actively scoring. I tell you the truth, I wasn't too actively watching. I wasn't paying attention much, but I was like, wow, this kid's doing well. I remember like midway through the fight, I'm like, he's doing really well. I didn't expect it. So again, I want to say congratulations to Mr. Perrella. And earlier in the day, we saw Demetrius Andrade tested by Liam Williams. I think he won the fight pretty wide. I think the scores were quite right. But, Liam Williams surprised me. He was able to take Andrade's shots and come forward and really, I think there was even a point where he kind of buzzed Andrade there for a second. Andrade was in a good fight. It's hard. It sounds weird to say that he was in a good fight, but he was in a good fight. He was marked up a little bit, but his offense is there. But he looked a little bit more suspect on the defensive side. I wonder if this is him just slowing down like we talked about with Lara. Lara looked a lot like Andrade, but then he slowed down. And then all of a sudden his fights became better, but he became more beatable. Because remember, boxing, like I said, is a game of millimeters. These shots that don't land on you in your late 20s and early 30s start to land on you in your mid 30s. And against real power punchers, that can be the difference. You know, Liam Williams was also one of those guys, by the way, who you don't really want to get into a bar fight with. Because he took the kitchen sink to the face and kept coming. Obviously, he was knocked down. But Andre landed hellacious uppercuts to the face, to the body, everywhere. And Williams kept coming. You know, Andre is a very good fighter. I really hope that this little bit of vulnerability is now going to be able to lure some of the other top dogs at 160 in. I really do hope. I really hope that they really make the GGG fight. You know, I think both fighters, like, this will be pretty good because Golovkin's got to do something. And, you know, he's just sitting around here. I know he's got a few more fights left on his contract with the Zone. I don't know if that even means anything. But, you know, they were saying that he's fighting Murata, which is a pretty good fight. I expect him to get through it. But I really want to see him against Andre now. It'll be like a legacy test for him as well in some ways to see where he is. Like, can he beat Andre? That's going to be, I wonder what the odds are going to be over there in terms of betting. That's going to be interesting. That really is going to be interesting. I have a feeling Andre, if he tries to throw those lead uppercuts, is going to get hurt really bad. And you saw Liam Williams actually counter him a couple of times with the overhand right. Guys, you have to be careful. You have to understand that if you throw lead hook uppercuts like that, a guy can easily throw a turning hook, and you wind up walking almost right into it. You know? Overhand right, slight step, and overhand right, which Liam Williams landed on him. Those counters, like, you're taught never to throw lead uppercuts like that. Obviously, Roy Jones can do whatever he wants, and Andre was much faster than Liam Williams and was able to land those. But against Golovkin, who's a very good timing guy, he can time you right in. And if you get caught clean with an uppercut or a straight overhand right like that, or a straight overhand right like that by Golovkin, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because power's the last thing that goes. These guys, like Golovkin, is obviously not a snappy, and even his power's diminished now that he's in his very late 30s. But he will still beat your ass if you allow him to land on you like that. Obviously, I do not think Andre will take the same approach to Golovkin as he did to Liam Williams. But nonetheless, there's, you know, the vulnerability, like I said, the vulnerability that Andre showed I hope is going to lure someone in. I really hope so. Now, like, it looks like Jamal Charlo's not going to fight him. Munguia, I think Munguia is a recipe for disaster, to tell you the truth. He's going to walk into the wrong fighter. I know they were talking about Munguia versus Golovkin. No way, son. No way. Golovkin's going to knock this guy's head off. Munguia is a powerful kid, but he has zero defense. And at this level, against the top guys, no. You're going to get knocked out. So, I mean, it's a fight I don't want to see, of course, because I think it's going to be a banger of a fight, Golovkin-Munguia. But I can't see the Munguia's handlers doing that. I mean, they're going to cash out on him eventually, but I think they can still milk the public a little bit more. So again, congratulations to Andre. He fought a good fight, and congratulations to Liam Williams. I definitely underestimated him a little bit. He showed a lot of heart. He kept coming. He was a tough, rugged kid. Like I said, he took the kitchen sink and then some, and he still stood. So, congratulations, Liam. Congratulations, Demetrius. Again, this was a good day. You know, I watched some hockey in the morning. I saw some boxing at 3 p.m. Then we had the dual cards. I had them going on 2 screens. It was a good day. I wish, you know, my only bad bet of the night was really the Ben Askren fight. Everything else, we all made a little bit of money here, right? If you followed any of my advice. Again, not advice. If you followed any of my picks that I did myself and you then chose on your own volition to do so, again, not financial advice. Please, you're grown people. Please, you all made your own decisions. Okay. And that's going to do it for me. I'll see you guys at the Thursday show. It's over.
I'm going to go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy, you know, just...